Hi there, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Five Questions and a Glass of Wine. I hope you're all staying healthy out there, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking to Graham Tatomer of Tatomer Wines. He comes out of Santa Rita Hills, and we're going to talk to him about his work with two really awesome grape varietals that come from Austria, Riesling and Gruner Veltliner. Let's catch up with Graham and see what he's all about. Enjoy. How are you today, Graham?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Absolutely. Glad to have you. So you make Tatomer wines, and could you walk us through your origin story a little bit about how you got into winemaking?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Santa Barbara, which is, of course, wine country, basically. And but I really just sort of fell into it one summer by getting a job on Santa Barbara Winery's bottling line when I was in high school. And the winemaker, who's still the winemaker there, Bruce McGuire, incredibly inviting guy, and the assistant winemaker was the young Greg Brewer, who went on to make Brewer Clifton.
Great guy.
Yeah. So really started there and worked on the bottling line, and then just started asking questions about the whole process. And it's like it was just good. It was really just good to get that first paycheck and work in a nice refrigerated room during summer, and it smelled great. And but ended up finding out that harvest comes in the fall, and they work long hours, and was able to work basically after school. I'd ride my skateboard down after high school, and
Awesome.
And just basically scrub tanks.
Cool.
And that's really where it all started.
I need a little bit of Riesling in my life, so I can't wait to give this a sip, and maybe we can talk a little bit about this. We've got the 2017 vintage of the Steinhugel. And I'm pronouncing that correctly, Steinhugel?
Yeah, Steinhugel.
Great.
So yeah, this wine is, well, it's a cuvee. It's 95% from the La Estancia Vineyard in Santa Lucia Highlands up in Monterey County. The other 5% is super important. It's from Tally, their Oliver's Vineyard in Edna Valley. Really what you have here is some components that go in to make this Riesling. So what I'm doing there is taking some real like early lean and mean picks, getting a huge amount of acidity, and then letting the grapes get a little more time on the vine and getting a little bit more of that California like flavor development that we can get, and really building this wine to express sort of Riesling off this land. Like I'll take one pick of like the first pick of La Estancia, and you'll see here. Let's see if this works when I unhook the computer.
Okay.
But I'm in the cellar here, and right behind me you'll see my press.
Mm-hmm.
And it just comes to this bad boy. And what I have, which is a little bit unique in California, is a tank press. You see it's solid, like there's no screen. And that allows me to do macerations. I can't quite get in there. There's some little holes that there's like these screens and these pipes on one side where I can let the juice eventually come out. But basically everything comes into this site as hand-picked grapes, super cold. Almost everything's harvested at night. Goes to this press, whole cluster pressed, and then just goes to one of these tanks over here right behind me. These are super tall, skinny tanks, really good for settling.
Great.
Settle it overnight, turn around. Sorry, there's a bunch of junk in the middle of the cellar right now. But these square tanks right behind me, it's racked to those, and kind of away we go. It's all fermented with natural yeast. So it's a fairly cool fermentation, but does get kind of up to 75 degrees, which is super important.
Sure. So just a couple of quick things for the people viewing this. Cuvée means a blend. It means a blend. And then maceration, you mentioned. Could you talk to us a little bit about maceration?
Yeah, absolutely. So maceration is when I've crushed the grapes to some extent. So now there's a mixture of grape juice and the grape skins and stems. And I'm just letting it it's macerate there. It's just sit there in its own self, and you extract things from the skins and the seeds and the stems there's like this, there's some chemical reactions where some of the acidity that I have in abundance with Riesling, I'll lose a little bit of that, the stems, kind of tame it a little bit, but then I'll gain tannin from the skins, which gives the wine just a different type of backbone. So I'm really giving the wine a more complex structure. And like with each one of those picks off La Estancia, about half of the pick is just direct press. So I'm not doing a skin contact, although I do a fairly turbulent phenolic extraction of the grape, because Riesling, you want the flavors in the skin if you've farmed them to be beautiful, which is like what I'm all about.
They are, for sure. I was just going to say it's very aromatic and floral, and you definitely get that sort of that skin texture. It's not exactly like a tannin texture. It's that phenolic you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a touch of bitterness, because just like in food, you know, a touch of bitterness mixed with some sweetness from the fruit and the right acidity it's just the magic combo.
Right. It's the frame.
Yeah.
Like the fruit and the floral is the paint on the canvas, and then the phenolic or the tannins come in to frame it all, which is really, really nice. And if you're doing it exactly right, which it feels like you are, it's a gorgeous thing. So as far as Riesling goes, just to give a little background of its history in the U.S. And in Western palates, there was kind of this flood of the market of a certain style of Riesling, which I've observed is how do you put it? Sweet.
Yeah,
it's very sweet. And if we're talking about balance and the definition of that sort of being that no one thing overpowers another, that everything's perfectly in balance as far as the different aspects of a wine, that it sort of became this trend that Riesling was just this sugar bomb. Do you feel like Riesling kind of needs some of that redefining in the Western palate a little bit?
Yeah. Well, Riesling is challenging because it can be made in so many different ways. You know, it can be made sweet at a high level. It can be made dry at a high level. But like what you're talking about, balance, that is the key. You know, so that the market was flooded with this sweet Riesling. I mean, for good reason. I mean, we're a Coca-Cola drinking nation, right? Sure. I mean, it's like we love sweet beverages, but you know, the reason the epic German Rieslings are sweet is because they have so much acidity. It's just like out of control. They need it to balance, and they get physiological ripeness at an earlier stage than we do. So they have flavor, and they have tons of acidity, and they've got this sugar, and so they've already got their flavor, and they've got to balance that acidity with the sugar.
Right.
In California, we don't have the flavor at the same point in the growth cycle that they do in like the Mosel of Germany.
And when you're talking about the Mosel of Germany or in Austria, when I think of that, I think of cold climate. I think of way colder climate than we're kind of dealing with over here, and that's what keeps things that are fruit that's grown tart and acidic. And so that's that mouth-watering aspect again. And if you're kind of working with this delicate balance, that's a very important trait. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I'm not mistaken, you jumped out of America for a little while. And could you talk to us a little bit about how you fell in love with your two pillar grapes, kind of the Riesling and Gruner Veltliner, and where you went to study those wines?
Yeah, so I really, really fell in love with Riesling while I was at Santa Barbara Winery. There's actually a history of Riesling from Santa Barbara. It was one of the grapes chosen to be planted, like at Sanford and Benedict, you know, in the early 70s, when they were driving around trying to, you know, Richard Sanford with a compass and a thermometer trying to figure out where to plant mostly Pinot and Chard, but they were like, oh, this is Riesling country too. So there's a tiny bit in Santa Barbara. It's always been an uphill battle to sell Riesling in America, kind of. But we had some fruit at Santa Barbara Winery from the Lafon Vineyard planted in the early 70s that I got to work with while there. And it was just spectacular. And the winemaker admitted it's just nobody was given the love it deserved because the market wasn't there. Luckily, that's changed a lot now. But basically, that gave me a little taste of it. And I wanted to learn how to grow that grape well. I thought, you know what, there's been people that have gone to Europe and worked in Burgundy and come back, and New World winemaking, whatever you want to call it, it's really benefited from people going to the old world and training there from basically multi-generational winemaking families, and then bringing that information back. And nobody had done it with Riesling. And I had recently in 2003, I guess, fallen in love with Austrian Riesling and Gruner Veltliner.
Definitely.
And I called up one of my favorite producers, Weingut Knoll, or I kind of crashed this tasting where they were going to be there. And I just asked for a job, just like, hey, I'm Graham. Any positions open this harvest? And they just thought it was funny. And but sure, yeah, they'll take the crazy American.
But sometimes that's all it takes.
That's all.
Just have to say hi.
It doesn't hurt to ask. I tell you that much. It really does not hurt to ask. So I ended up landing with one of the greatest producers of Riesling and Gruner Veltliner in the world. And what was supposed to just be like an 8 or 10 week harvest turned into a lifetime friendship, and a year working there, and multiple harvests after that, working for them and learning from them.
When you were over in Austria, any fun stories from the vineyard?
I mean, we had plenty of fun, I'll tell you that much.
Sure.
But it was, God, it is a country of drinkers. That's for sure. I mean,
I like them already.
I don't know if this is appropriate. It's fine. Yeah, it's totally appropriate.
Yeah, totally.
But so for
We're
the
a country
most
of
part,
drinker.
they learned that, like, I had a huge amount of experience in the cellar, and for most of harvest, they actually threw me down in the cellar, saw that I could do the work, and they just kind of like locked me in there. So I had to really like beg to get out of the cellar and see sunlight and go and see these vineyards, and I'm so thankful that I insisted on it.
Yeah.
But so my first day in the vineyard during harvest, right? You know, everybody's getting up at dawn. You're out there, and you're right. It's like freezing cold, like already. You're harvesting. Everybody's bundled up in jackets, and but it's hard work, you know. And you're hand sorting all this fruit on the vine, which is super important. Like, you know, is it going to be a dry wine? Is it going to be a sweet wine? They've got different buckets, and then, you know, is it rot? And you've got to throw it around and stomp it with your foot. Anyway, around 10 a.m. they have a little snack break for the whole crew. And it's like, you know, some pickles and some cheese, and there's a bottle of sparkling water, and there's a bottle of wine, and there's some glasses, and I'm like totally thirsty. Now we've been working, and I go for this bottle of sparkling water, and they completely stop me in my tracks. They're like, no. You don't drink pure water here. That is to be mixed with the wine. That is for the spritzer.
Oh. Nice.
It's 10 a.m. and we've all been waiting for this, and it's time for a little half and half, you know.
Yeah.
Wine.
I love it. Yeah. So, spritzer break. Everyone spritzer break. Put your buckets down.
10 a.m. spritzer break. If you're looking for something heavier than that at 10 a.m., apparently you have a problem. You also have a problem if you want to just drink the straight water.
I think all of us would do a little better if we start integrating a 10 a.m. spritzer break.
It's amazing.
Next, I'd like to talk about one of my personal favorite white wine varietals, and that is Gruner Veltliner. I know it's a favorite of sommeliers and wine enthusiasts. I've always said it's one of the best white wines that people aren't drinking that much of, but the people that know. Could you tell us a little bit about your Gruner Veltliner and what makes it so special?
Yeah, so mostly we're talking about Gruner Veltliner Meeresboden from Santa Barbara. I make 3 Gruner Veltliners, but this is really the main one. And So like what you just said, Gruner Veltliner is this sort of, you got to be in the know to know about it. And for years, I don't know why, I guess because Austria just consumed most of their own wine for years, but it's been like their little secret that is now being planted all around the world.
Yep.
It's one of the most food-friendly varieties you could ever ask for. As a server in a restaurant, this can be like in your back pocket as the, everybody wants to have different wine, and this person, like, we don't know what goes with this. Gruner goes with it.
I have never had someone send a Gruner Veltliner back, ever. They have always been totally blown away by it. So definitely keep that in your back pocket, everybody listening.
Meeresboden is this like glorious, like layered, textural, just like, it's so flavorful.
Mm-hmm.
It has these early picks that have that bright acidity, kind of like how Steinhugel has all those layers. Meeresboden has even more picking decisions, more cuvées within the cellar. And it just like, it touches on the spice component that is classic in Gruner Veltliner, that white peach, apricot, grapefruit, and it has like this ginger component. But then
like a ginger or clove type
totally
thing going
clove,
on.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of that wine.
Kiss of like sort of California sunshine that distinctly makes it Californian and not Austrian, that people just love. Actually, it's just like what you said. Trust me, like, people love that wine. I'm super happy that this wine exists, and it's somehow it's just sort of happened organically, like one vineyard at a time, one picking decision at a time, and now we have this cuvée that's basically cool. Meeresboden means ocean soil, and it's those two sites are sandy soil, so it's basically like this soil expression of the grape.
That's awesome. And it's worth mentioning, right now I'm enjoying the Steinhugel immensely. Very, very great. I tried to find a bottle of that Gruner Veltliner, and the people that know about it really know about it and have bought it all up in the valley. So really a special bottle. What other varietals are you working with, or do we have any red wines on the way, or anything else that we should know about?
Yeah, I make Pinot Noir in addition to these two whites. That's only about 20% of my production is Pinot Noir. Okay. And I make a tiny bit of rosé of Pinot Noir. But I only work with these three varieties, and that really helps me focus. And I'd really rather just try to elevate expressions of those three varieties.
Absolutely.
Although it's hard in Santa Barbara, it's hard because it's such a diverse terroir as you go from oceanside to mountainside.
I suppose the next question is, what's on the horizon for Tatomer wines? What are you into next?
Well, I always would love to find one of the varieties I'm already working with, but like on a new, fascinating site. And to me, that's maybe a different soil type, or working with a producer that's maybe doing real radical farming, like regenerative agriculture, which we've actually already applying at La Estancia Vineyard. I mean, in fact, pretty much everything I work with is farmed organically now. It was not that way at the beginning because there's so few Gruner Veltliner and Riesling vineyards to even choose from. But now it's like we're converted almost all this to organic. So that's super exciting.
Really cool that organic ripple. I've interviewed a few winemakers now, and that ripple is such a cool thing because it's really going back to the roots, pun sort of intended, the roots of winemaking. Like, we didn't have all these pesticides and farming practices that used a bunch of heavy machinery and things like that in the past. They would just go make the wine. It's really cool.
It's been really spectacular. I mean, some of it's taken years to convince a grower to convert, but there's been multiple times where it's like, okay, we'll try it. And then they tried it, like, oh, it wasn't more expensive. And it wasn't even hard. It was like it's like, there's so many problems. I mean, it's the same inside the winery. Like, there's so much, like, I get all these calls and knocks on the door on like stuff to use in the winery to to like make your wine this way or that way. And it's just like, if you just shut the door and just ignore everybody, it's like the wine will be fine. And it's the same with the vineyard. You just need to read your land and learn your land, and you will figure out how to farm it organically.
Yeah, it's way more simple than people want to make it. And if you kind of tee it up for it, it wants to become wine.
Yep.
It wants to become wine. It's just about helping it and guiding it to show what it can show. That's what I've always observed. So that's so cool. Really excellent stuff, man. I'm so glad that we got to take some time out of the day and enjoy some of the delicious juice that's coming out of Tatomer. And I can't thank you enough. We're really excited to be pouring this as much as we can, and we look forward to what's coming next. Can't wait to stay in touch and see what's going on in the future with you.
All right, thanks, Ryan. It's
awesome. Thank
great
you,
to be part of it. Yeah, you get some Riesling in you, beat the heat out there in Arizona, and
definitely
keep having a good time.
10 o'clock spritzers all day.
All day, every day. You know it.
Right on, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.